that they were going to, have their way with us. Man, we're rolling them. And it all started, absolutely, Bruce in the chat room, it all started to me to change with the hit on Locker. Kirksey, and I watched that thing like 15 times, and really, I guess from a sports talk angle, I'd love to be here barking and going, man, what a dirty play, what an intentional shot. I don't know. I'm not saying it was completely clean. I don't know what the intention of it was. I mean, the guy was so far past the goal line that, obviously you hope in a sportsmanship way that a guy was not intending for that to happen. Either way, it was a shot that absolutely got both sides fired up. I mean, that game got nasty from that point on. And Chris Kirksey, and if you want to look at that as a cheap shot, like intentional, I know it was a cheap shot either way, but I was hoping, at least giving it an intentional. Well, it doesn't matter because they intentionally got his ass back a couple of times during the game. How about that one play, which worked out for the Browns? See, once you got in Tennessee's head, they kept, and we've seen this with Browns teams over the last 10 years, once you get in a team's head and they're a bad team with some bad momentum, it starts to go from bad to worse. They get frustrated. They start making mistakes and shooting themselves in the foot. And that's, again, what you saw there. And then several times we saw key personal fouls and things that extended drives or got the Browns another opportunity there. I mean, those are all things that happen when you win a game against a team, the way it fell out. But that fired both teams up. There was all kinds of stuff. What was amazing about that play was Kirksey hit Locker, and then the multiple personal foul. The Browns ended up getting the plus side of that whole thing when the penalties shook out. But yeah, from there, that was in their head, and you could see with some of those guys it affected them. And then Morgan got ejected from the game, which I thought was big too, because he was, I don't have his stats in front of me. I guess I could pull up the box score here, but I know he was a name that you kept hearing all the time, like being in the vicinity of stuff and helping make plays for them. That's a big deal. You lose Locker, obviously, which let's think about that. Now, the first shot was with Kirksey there in the end zone. But Buster Screen, he came in, and it looked a lot like Antonio Brown in the first game against Spencer Lanning when he comes in with the kung fu grip. The same thing here, man. Buster Screen went up like a video game jump. I'm like, man, in basketball, I'm pretty sure that's 3 shots if he was shooting the three-pointer there, because you can't plow into the guy. He goes up and forward, and not only hits him on the helmet, but ends up busted in the thumb, and that took Locker out for the game, and who knows where else that goes. But, for anybody that, it wants to say it was just the switch of quarterbacks, I mean, at first it wasn't, because Whitehurst came in and boom, I mean, he hit his first couple of passes, 2 touchdowns there, bam. And just like that, 2 of his first 3 passes were touchdowns. As I said, that one, 75 yards. And, obviously, I'm not going to argue with, like, every single opinion in here, but I disagree. I think the Browns' offense wasn't terrible in the first half, but obviously everybody's got their different opinions about things. But regardless of that, you're down 28-3 at that point. And that was such a lightning-quick strike that I think it hit the Browns the same way. They looked almost the same way, probably you guys, and we did when we saw the play. You're like, what just happened? Okay, 21-3 was bad enough here, but, what in the world? 2 long drives? Okay, well, at least, those were extended drives. That one was just like that, and it was Charlie Whitehurst that came in and did it. So, I mean, I would not blame anybody, and I'll be honest with you. I can't tell you how many people, I'm not going to stooge some of them out on the air, but I can't tell you how many people said, man, I quit watching the game at halftime. I'm talking about certain friends of ours, certain media people perhaps, certain people that I know as well off the air that said, man, I can't, I got to pull up the DVR. I started getting hit with tweets and text messages and going, wow, I stopped watching the game, or I fell asleep at halftime, which, I get it. I'm not trying to say it's ever okay to give up, but I mean, you're down 28-3. I can understand why you may have felt mowing the lawn may have been in your best interest in the second half of that game, but you sure screwed up if you did, because the fun of sports, and especially, when it's happening to your team, is what happened in that second half, because it was exactly what happened in Pittsburgh, except they went the final step and finished it off. And And there's absolutely no way you're going to sit here and tell me that Tennessee came into the second half and let the Browns just walk all over them. I mean, the Browns, I'll give Brian Hoyer, he said it best. They had their way with the Titans in the second half offensively. But even then, couple of keys that made this thing happen. Otherwise, we're just talking about a big comeback that fell short, and why in the world did you give up 28 points to the Titans in the first half when they haven't scored more than 27 in any of their other games this season? And that was first what I talked about before the break. I gotta say, you say what you want about the X's and O's of Mike Pettin, but something about the football and the moxie of this guy. When Travis Benjamin muffs that punt, and he's done as a punt returner. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's in his head. I'm telling you that you can tell that's just not a good option going forward. But he's getting better as a wide receiver as he's regressing as a punt returner, which is fine, because if he's going to go up and get that ball and go make a couple of those catches like he's done here, I'll take that. We've got other guys that can return punts. But, right there, that thing, first off, that was the game changer. Because at that point, if that happens and the Browns don't get that ball back, you got to think that there was a real potential for the game to be over, wrapped up in a nutshell right there, because that was a backbreaker. I mean, that one was a backbreaker. I mean, the air just sucked out of me, sucked out of the room that we were in. You're just like, wow. You forced the punt here, and you done a good job before the half. That score was big too. Getting that touchdown right before the half was huge, because that was a big difference. You got the ball coming back out. That enabled you to put 10 points on the board basically in a couple of minutes swing between the end of the first half and beginning of the second half there. But, man, Mike Pettin on the sidelines, man. Benji said it after the game. Coach said, do not put your head down. Don't go over there and take your helmet off. I'm going to need you to make a play. And you know what? He did. And the kid came up and got it, man. He went up and got that ball that Hoyer threw up there where only he could get it. Got his feet down. Maybe the pink shoes helped. I was joking. I said, maybe the pink shoes really help you tippy-tap that thing on the back of the line because you got a good vision on them. But seriously, how many times in any sport do you see, a guy get an opportunity, even be allowed to get it? Because there's a lot of people that thought Benji was done, not just, as the returner, but out for the rest of the game. I did not. Now, honestly, I'm not hindsight second looking back at this thing. I told the guy I was watching the game with, I said I wouldn't let him return another kick, but I said he can keep receiving for me, but he's not going back there. We got 4 or 5 guys that we can put back there to return these punts, man. And I'm glad they didn't. But that's something. That's something. When I talk about Hoyer, having that intangible that guys believe him. When you look at him and say we're going to win, you go, of course we are, because we do this all the time. When guys have credibility. Same thing there. When Mike Pettin grabs a guy and instead of saying, oh, man, you worthless piece of blah, 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 man, or oh, man, don't worry about it. We'll come back to you next week. That's still a coach's nice way of saying, all right, you're done for the day. You've cost us today. Even though it's a compliment, it's a backhanded one. But it's another one to say, you're going out right back out there. I'm going to need you to make me a play. Stop thinking about this. And then you go back to the guy. You call his number on one of the most important game or plays of the game. That says something not only now. I'm telling you, I understand the dynamics of coaching and how it works with players and their egos. That pays dividends later down the line. That's trust. That's equity that's earned between the players and the coach that cannot be put up in an intangible, because nobody would have blamed Mike Pettin. Nobody right now would be mad if Travis Benjamin did not go back into that game after he muffed that punt. Nobody would. But so I'm just saying there's something to be said for that, and that was huge, though. That was big because he came back in. And then obviously the biggest change is the biggest final swing point was the double challenges, and I have no idea. I know what the Wisenhunt said after the game, and he had a good point, because the Browns had already used their timeouts. They had one left. If they would have gotten that first down with 4 minutes to go in the game, they would have maybe been able to run the clock, but even then, the Browns probably would have gotten the ball back with about a minute plus run into play or whatever. So I think they still would have gotten another opportunity. Instead, big mistake on Tennessee's part to try to go for it on that fourth down. But the play before that was the key, because never did Delanie Walker swing his body around. That ball, what bad luck for Walker and the Titans, and good one for the Browns. He caught it and he had the yardage, but he never turned and positioned his body to where the ball never actually passed the marker. So good job by Pettin, and that's risky when you've got one timeout left. And you're down in you know you're going to get the ball and you're going to have one drive left to try to win this game. You're risking your last time out. Now, if you don't get that and then you get the ball back, people are going, well, if Pettin doesn't challenge, then he gets his timeout, and Pettin's an idiot. Instead, he has the cojones to throw that flag out there, and that's not a guaranteed overturn because the call on the field was first down. So that wasn't a guaranteed overturn like that. They overturned the call, and that was huge. Sets up the fourth down. Then Tennessee, Whitehurst, I will say, for Paul Kruger, physically stopped that first down. He grabbed the back of Whitehurst's jersey, and it was like a video game, watching a guy move his feet in slow motion, but he wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't letting Whitehurst move. They swirled him up, and again, then the challenge to get overheld or not overturned there, upheld, whatever. You know what I'm saying. For that to happen there, again, huge. That was the difference. When that happened, I had absolutely no doubt that the Browns were going to drive down. No doubt at that point, because there was plenty of time left, and Tennessee had not stopped them at all in the second half of the game. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if this is, I see Bruce made a comment about a quarterback sneak. I don't know about that, but for all the people, by the way, that make it seem like Johnny Manziel is fleet of foot and Brian Hoyer lives in quicksand back there in the back, how about when the linebacker broke through on him on the touchdown pass to Travis Benjamin, and the linebacker breaks through on him. He dips on him. It was like dodgeball, dip, duck, dodge, duck, dive, and dodge. But he gets out of the way, steps up in the pocket. Benjamin does a great job of breaking his route, cutting over to the open spot, and beating Pollard there in the end zone. But Hoyer made that play by stepping up past the defender and then stepping forward them 5 yards and being able to get that pass off, man. Just great. But, I mean, and it all comes down to the end. And then the Browns defense did what they had to do, was able to get the stop there, when at first you're thinking, oh, man, there's still some. And tell me, we got to get a break here, but tell me like I was, that you didn't say, man, they scored too fast. Because I definitely, Mike Pettin said he said, I can't lie, man. Or Hoyer, excuse me, said, I can't lie. I was thinking that a little bit in the back of my head. You know, I mean, you got to score. You can't control how long it takes you to get down there. You got to punch it in. But I thought the same thing. I said, oh, man, they got a timeout over there. They got a chance to get down here and at least give themselves a shot. But, the Browns did a good job of keeping the ball in the middle of the field and forcing them to use that one timeout, and that was it. Once they had to use the timeout there, then the Browns were able to wrap it up, because there just wasn't enough time to get it down. But they took care of business, and then the defense in the second half, that should have been the way they played the whole game. I mean, they came up in the second half, but even then, they still, man, they didn't get to the quarterback. They got it a little bit in the second half, but not like you wanted them to. Still not getting the pressure on there, but that's something for another day, because today, I'm going to go back to where I said at the beginning. The Browns won the biggest comeback in Cleveland Browns history, and that's where it sits and that's where it lays today. And the Browns are now 2-2 with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming back to Cleveland. The Browns with the blood in their mouth still fresh from the opening week of the season. What happens here? Will they turn this around? I mean, we got a whole week to digest this. I'm not exactly ready to turn the page to Pittsburgh just yet. Much like the Browns, there's that 24-hour rule. I'm going to live the same place. Tomorrow, we'll start turning the page. Right now, let's get a break. You hear the thriller in the background. It was a thriller in Tennessee, and the Browns got the victory. And hats off, by the way, to the Tennessee Browns backers. Did you guys see how many Browns fans were at that stadium? I'd bet it was 70-30. Browns had about 30% of the fans in that stadium. During those final two drives, There were as many Browns fans cheering as there were Titans fans. I'm telling you, man, there was a explosion in the building for that final touchdown there. I mean, I know some of the Titans fans had left, but there was a lot of Browns fans representing in Tennessee. Gotta love that. All right, guys, let's take a break, get you some news when we come back. NFL, Browns, and more. John McMullen from the Sports Network joins us. We'll keep it up, talk about all the goings-on this week. Plus, don't forget Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. We'll talk some Buckeyes and Cavs and so much more. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next, all that and more after the